At exactly 4:03 a.m., I woke up to red and blue lights flashing through my bedroom window and a loud knock shaking my front door. I thought someone had died. I stumbled down the stairs in my boxers, heart pounding, only to find two cops standing on my porch and the shrill voice of Nadine Baxter, president of the Willow Creek, HOA, barking at them like they were her personal security team. "He's blocking access," she snapped, gesturing wildly toward my own driveway. "My guests have nowhere to park. My name's Mason Keller. I've lived in Willow Creek for 6 years. I've been in my house longer than Nadine's even owned hers. And my driveway, it's mine, not shared, not communal." "Definitely not public guest parking," one of the officers shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, is that your vehicle in the driveway?" "Yes," I said flatly. "That's my property. It's parked on my driveway, and I'm not moving it." Nadine stepped forward, her robe fluttering like a cape of entitlement. "I told you yesterday, Mason. I'm hosting the HOA board brunch and we need overflow parking. You said no, but I assumed you'd come to your senses." "You assumed wrong," I said. She turned to the cops. "He's being uncooperative." The younger officer sighed. "Ma'am, he's not breaking any law." "It's his driveway. You can't call 911 for this." "I'm the HOA president," she snapped. "I have authority." "No," I cut in. You don't own my property, and you sure as hell don't have the right to wake me up over your brunch." The older officer looked like he'd had enough. "Ma'am, if you keep abusing emergency services, you're going to end up with a citation, or worse." Nadine's face went pale. "This is outrageous." "No," I said. "What's outrageous is you thinking HOA rules override private property rights." The cops left, clearly annoyed. Nadine stood on my lawn seething, arms crossed, muttering something about respect and communal values. I shut the door in her face and locked it. By 7 a.m., she was back, this time with her little clipboard, and that smug Karen energy turned up to 11. She slapped a bright pink violation notice on my front door. "Unauthorized vehicle blocking community access. $150 fine." I laughed out loud. I took a picture of the notice, then pulled out my copy of the Willow Creek HOA charter. I knew it better than she did. In fact, I helped revise it when I first moved in. There was zero clause about shared driveways or guest parking privileges. She was bluffing, and now I was going to push back. I printed out a letter of dispute, quoted the exact sections proving she had no authority, and emailed it to the HOA's legal inbox. I also CC'd the city zoning office. Oh, and I installed a motion-activated security cam facing my driveway. Because if Nadine wanted to play games, she was about to find out I didn't bluff. By the next morning, the pink violation slip was gone. Not because I took it down. Someone had torn it in half and tossed the pieces in my rose bushes. I noticed it while sipping my coffee on the porch, watching a squirrel try to drag a half-eaten granola bar up a tree. I almost missed the old Ford Taurus creeping past my house at a crawl, windows tinted, antenna bent, and a familiar figure in the passenger seat pretending not to look directly at me. "Nadine!" She ducked down the moment I raised my phone. I snapped a picture anyway. 10 minutes later, my neighbor June from across the street walked over, rubbing her temples like she had a migraine that wouldn't die. "She's been going door to door since sunrise," June said, nodding toward the end of the cul-de-sac. "Telling folks you threatened her, said you refused a reasonable compromise and endangered community harmony." I blinked. "She said I threatened her. She's calling it vehicular intimidation, whatever that means." I stood up slowly. "That's defamatory." June raised her eyebrows. "You think that's bad? She told the Widners you installed surveillance to harass board members." I told her she was out of line, but she's frothing at the mouth. "Did you see her car earlier? She's been cruising all morning, probably looking for more fake violations." June glanced toward her house. "I'd watch your mailbox." She's not subtle. By noon, I had 3 new citations tucked under my welcome mat. One claimed I had unapproved foliage within 5 feet of the sidewalk. Another said my porch light was non-standard. The third accused me of operating a commercial enterprise from home because my work van had a logo on the side. None of them were enforceable, but it wasn't about the rules. It was about pressure, intimidation, paper harassment. I filed a formal complaint with the city's Code Enforcement Division and attached every document, every time-stamped photo, and a copy of the HOA charter. I also called a friend of mine, Natalie, who used to work in the county prosecutor's office before switching to private practice. She didn't mince words. "That's targeted abuse," she said. "Misuse of HOA authority, filing false claims, and if she's telling people you threatened her, that's straight-up defamation. You want me to draft a cease and desist?" I didn't hesitate. "Do it." By the time the letter was ready, Nadine had escalated again. That evening, I came home from a supply run to find a bright yellow sticker on my van windshield. It read, "Commercial vehicle violation subject to towing." Under it, in faint pencil, someone had added, "Final warning." I checked my cameras. At 3:47 p.m., Nadine had marched up my driveway with a clipboard, stuck the sticker on my van, then posed beside it like she was on the cover of a real estate magazine. She snapped a photo, glanced around, then walked over to one of my planters and dumped something behind it. I replayed the footage 3 times. She dropped a small, clear bag. Looked like a candy wrapper at first, until I zoomed in. It was filled with nails, rusty, jagged, bent ones. I called the police. 2 officers arrived just before sunset. This time, they didn't look confused. One of them was the same guy from the early morning incident. "You've got video?" he asked. I pulled it up on my tablet. They watched in silence. When Nadine dropped the bag, the younger officer let out a low whistle. "Sabotage," he muttered. The older cop nodded. "That's criminal mischief. Possibly vandalism. And if she's distributing false claims about threats, that edges into harassment and defamation. We've got 3 other reports from this neighborhood this week," the younger one added. "Flat tires, broken garden lights. One guy said his dog got sick after eating something tossed over the fence. Nothing conclusive until now." I handed over a flash drive with the footage and details of every violation notice I'd received. "You filing civil too?" the older cop asked. "Already in motion," I said. "My lawyer's sending her a cease and desist." "Good," he said. "Because if she keeps this up, we'll have enough to involve the DA." They left with the evidence. I went back inside and updated my security settings. Added motion alerts, infrared sensitivity, and a second camera facing the side yard. Then I made copies of everything and dropped them off with Natalie the next morning. I figured things would cool off once she realized the law was watching. I was wrong. 3 days later, I came home to find a moving truck in my driveway, an actual moving truck. 2 guys in navy shirts were unloading boxes onto my lawn. One of them waved when he saw me. "You Mason?" "Yeah." He pulled a clipboard from his pocket. "We've got an order to move furniture into the garage. Says here it's temporary storage for a community event." I stared at him. "Who signed that order?" He flipped the page. "N. Baxter," I laughed, not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe how far she was willing to take this. "You're not touching a single thing," I said. "This is private property. She forged that order." He held up his hands. "Hey, we just do what we're told. You want us gone, we're gone." They packed up quickly. I filmed everything. That night I got a call from Natalie. "She filed a report," Natalie said. "Claims you're obstructing HOA operations and threatening vendors. It's nonsense, but she's trying to build a paper trail. She forged my name on a moving order. Then we escalate. I'm filing for an injunction tomorrow morning, restraining order 2. She's crossed the line into criminal fraud." The next morning, I beat the sunrise, parked my van sideways across the driveway and set up 2 orange cones with a sign that read, "Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted." 10 minutes later, I saw her again. Nadine, standing at the corner of the street with her little dog in one hand and a phone in the other. She stared at my sign like it had personally insulted her. Then she turned and walked away. By noon, the HOA board had an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. Word got around 3 board members resigned. One of them, a retired teacher named Gloria, sent me a handwritten note. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner," she wrote. "She's been bullying us too." Natalie filed the injunction by end of day. The judge approved it within 24 hours. Nadine was ordered to cease all contact, direct or indirect. She was barred from stepping onto my property and prohibited from using her position to initiate any enforcement action against me until the investigation was complete. But the real blow came a week later. The city attorney opened a formal inquiry into the Willow Creek HOA. They subpoenaed records, financials, board meeting transcripts. And they found things that had nothing to do with me: misappropriated funds, phantom maintenance expenses, inflated landscaping invoices paid to companies that didn't exist. Nadine wasn't just aggressive. She was embezzling. And now the entire neighborhood was watching. It wasn't just about my driveway anymore, it was about everything. The Monday after the city attorney launched the inquiry, I got a call from a man who introduced himself as Detective Harris from the County Financial Crimes Unit. His tone was dry, but interested someone who'd seen more than enough HOA nonsense, but knew when something deeper was rotting underneath. He asked if I'd be willing to answer a few questions about Nadine Baxter and the Willow Creek HOA. I told him he could come by that afternoon. He pulled up in an unmarked sedan around 2 o'clock, wearing a gray blazer with the sleeves rolled up and a legal pad tucked under his arm. He didn't waste time. "Did you ever receive any invoices from the HOA that didn't add up?" he asked, flipping through his notes. "I never paid a dime beyond the standard dues," I said, "but a few neighbors mentioned the monthly budget reports didn't match the visible work being done." He nodded. "Has anyone you know questioned those discrepancies before?" They tried. But Nadine kept board meetings closed to non-members, said it was to maintain order. He raised an eyebrow. "That's not legal under state HOA transparency statutes." "She acts like she's running a gated kingdom," I said. He made a note on his pad. "We found 6 checks issued to a landscaping company called Green Horizon Services over the past year. The address listed is a vacant lot in the next county. You ever see Green Horizon working in the neighborhood?" "Never heard of them," I said. "We've had the same guy mowing community lawns for years. He drives an old red pickup and uses his own name on the invoices. Frank Mendez. He lives 2 streets over." Harris gave a tight chuckle. "That's consistent with what Frank told us this morning." I leaned back in my chair. "You think Nadine created a fake vendor?" "She created 3, he said. "And one of them is registered under a shell company that ties back to her sister's address in Arizona. That landed hard. I didn't say anything. Just let the weight of it settle. She's got over 30,000 in questionable disbursements tied to non-existent services," Harris continued. "We're working with the district attorney's office now. This is crossing into felony territory." He thanked me for my time, left his card, and got back in his car. Less than 5 minutes later, another vehicle pulled into my driveway. It was Gloria, the former board member who had resigned during the emergency meeting. She stepped out holding a black binder. "I didn't know who else to give this to," she said. "But you're the only one who stood up to her and made it stick." "What is it?" I asked, taking the binder. "Everything," she said. "Meeting minutes, internal emails, expense reports. I copied it all before I quit." Inside were records going back 3 years. I flipped through pages of committee decisions, reimbursement forms, and even correspondence between Nadine and a property management company that no longer serviced our neighborhood. Most of the documents were marked with notes in red pen. The handwriting was Gloria's. She had marked every inconsistency, every expense that didn't have a matching receipt. On one page, a message caught my eye. It was an email from Nadine to the board titled Strategic Enforcement. She had written, "If we lean on the more difficult residents, others will fall in line. People don't want trouble on their street." I read it twice. "Did anyone else on the board object to this?" I asked. Gloria pursed her lips. One guy did, Jeremy Fox. He was a CPA. After he questioned a few things, she accused him of misconduct, claimed he was leaking personal info to non-board members. He left town 2 months later. You think that was retaliation? She told us during a meeting she'd handled it quietly. I don't know what that meant, but she looked too proud. The next day, I took the binder to Natalie. She spent an hour reviewing it before she looked up, eyes sharp. This is enough to get a forensic audit, maybe even a full board dissolution if the city pushes. Can they do that? I asked. With grounds, yes. And you've got grounds, Mason: fraud, misconduct, abuse of authority. They'll need to vote in a temporary oversight committee, though. Who picks the committee? The city. But they'll want homeowners involved. People with clean records and no ties to the board. My phone buzzed just then with a message from June, the neighbor who had warned me about Nadine's smear campaign earlier. She just received a letter in her mailbox unsigned, typed no return address. It accused her of colluding with disruptive elements and threatened legal action if she continued interfering with board operations. I called her immediately. She was shaken but furious. This is mafia behavior, Mason. I'm done whispering. If they come for me, I'll go public. Hold onto the letter, I told her. We're building something. That evening, I printed flyers. Not flashy ones, just a single sheet with bold black letters. Community meeting. HOA oversight and transparency hosted by concerned residents Thursday, 7 p.m. Keller residents no HOA approval. No RSVP, just a gathering of people who were fed up. By Thursday evening, over 30 people crowded onto my lawn with folding chairs and iced tea. Frank brought a cooler. June set up a speaker system. Gloria stood in front and read from the binder, her voice quivering at first, then steady. She read the strategic enforcement email aloud, gasps. Murmurs. Someone said, she actually wrote that. A man near the back, who I later learned was a retired judge, stepped forward. You all have the right to petition for a recall. The HOA charter allows for it. You get 30% of homeowners to sign and you can force a vote. Another neighbor raised their hand. What if she refuses to step down? Natalie was already walking forward, holding a folder. Then you take her to court, and based on what we've got, she'll lose. A petition was drawn up that night. People lined up to sign it. The next morning, 2 news vans showed up. Someone had tipped them off. Maybe June. Maybe Harris. Either way, the story hit the evening broadcast. Homeowners fight back against HOA scandal in Willow Creek. They showed clips from the meeting, blurred images of the binder pages, and even a short interview with Frank, who explained how he'd been paid cash under the table by Nadine to keep quiet about who really handled the landscaping. The story went viral in the local press. By Saturday, the city posted a notice on the HOA clubhouse door. Pending investigation, all HOA activities are suspended. Nadine was nowhere to be found. Her house sat dark, mail piled up in her box, packages stacked by her door. Then came the final nail. Detective Harris returned with a warrant for her home. The neighborhood watched from their porches as officers carried out boxes of documents, a desktop computer, and a small safe. No one said a word, but you could feel the shift. The fear was gone. The silence had broken. Later that evening, Gloria found me sitting on my porch with a beer, staring down the street at the empty house. She never thought anyone would push back, she said. She thought we were weak, I said. She forgot we were neighbors first. Gloria looked down the street, then back at me. You think she'll run? She already did, I said, but she won't get far. Because the law doesn't knock at 4 in the morning. It kicks down the door at noon in broad daylight with the whole street watching. The following Monday, I was called in to testify at a closed-door city hearing. It was held at the municipal building downtown, a squat gray structure with flickering fluorescent lights and a coffee machine that wheezed like it had asthma. I wore a collared shirt and brought a folder containing every document I had collected: the forged moving order, the fake citations, the security footage, and a printed copy of the cease and desist letter that Nadine had ignored. Across the table sat the city attorney, a court reporter, and two members of the HOA regulatory oversight task force, people I never knew existed until they were assigned to this mess. They didn't ask redundant questions. Everything was focused, precise. "When did you first notice behavior that suggested a pattern of abuse?" the city attorney asked. "The morning she called the police. She tried to claim I was obstructing community access by parking on my own driveway," I said. The court reporter typed silently. The oversight task force members exchanged a look but didn't interrupt. Did she ever present any written rule supporting her claim? Nothing legitimate. And I cross-referenced every section of the HOA charter. She was inventing authority. They nodded. "Did this behavior escalate?" I slid the photo of the sticker that had been placed on my van. "She tried to have my vehicle towed, claimed it was a commercial violation, then she dropped a bag of nails behind my planter. I've got time-stamped footage of that too." One of the task force members, a woman with a silver bob and reading glasses halfway down her nose, leaned forward. "Was that reported to law enforcement?" "Yes." Officers responded and took a statement. They already had other complaints from the neighborhood. It wasn't isolated. The hearing lasted 40 minutes. They didn't need more than that. They already had the binder Gloria handed over, the forged vendor documents, and bank records the police had subpoenaed from the HOA's operating account. This was just confirmation. When I walked out of the building, I passed 3 city workers unloading boxes into the records department. On top of one was a file marked Willow Creek HOA Emergency Administration Takeover. By Thursday, the city had assigned an interim administrator to handle what was left of the HOA's operations. His name was Jamal Reddick, a former housing compliance officer with a reputation for dealing with rogue boards. He drove a battered Dodge Caravan and kept a clipboard tucked under his arm like it was part of his anatomy. He stood at the clubhouse steps that morning and addressed the crowd of residents who had gathered. "For the next 90 days, Jamal said, all HOA functions are suspended pending audit results. No new rules, no new fines, no board activity. Any existing complaints will be reviewed by my office and either dismissed or re-evaluated under city oversight." People clapped. Some cheered. I saw June cross her arms and whisper to her husband, "About time." Jamal wasn't there to make friends. He was there to clean house. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. City auditors were sent in to review the HOA's books. They found expense reports signed by Nadine for events that never happened, like a community garden installation that supposedly cost over $8,000, the space designated for it. Still an empty patch of mulch behind the tennis courts. They also found that several landscaping evaluations billed at $600 a visit had never occurred. The vendor listed didn't exist. The tax ID number matched a shell corporation registered under Nadine's cousin's name. That cousin, by the way, lived in Portland and hadn't worked a landscaping job in over a decade. Detective Harris returned to the neighborhood, this time with a search warrant for Nadine's sister's property in Arizona. The information had come from a cross-reference of HOA payments routed through a dummy cleaning service. Everything pointed back to a single checking account used to launder the funds, one that had received steady monthly deposits just days after HOA dues were paid. The arrest came quietly but not unnoticed. Nadine was picked up outside a boutique wine bar in Scottsdale. According to the report, she was carrying a suitcase, a burner phone, and $3,000 in cash. She didn't resist. She didn't speak. She just handed over her ID and was escorted into a waiting vehicle. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office extradited her back to our state within 72 hours. The indictment listed 7 felony counts: wire fraud, embezzlement, falsification of financial records, obstruction of justice, criminal mischief, defamation with malicious intent, and misuse of emergency services. The last one, That came directly from the 911 call she made at 4 in the morning to try and commandeer my driveway for her brunch guests. At the arraignment, she pled not guilty, but her court-appointed attorney looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Her bail was denied due to flight risk. Meanwhile, the community had changed. Jamal organized a town hall in the park to discuss the future of the HOA. It wasn't mandatory, but nearly every homeowner showed up. Folding chairs stretched across the grass. People brought coffee, snacks, even a few kids who ran between the trees while the adults talked. "I don't think we need an HOA," someone said. "We just need transparency," said another. Jamal nodded. "I'm not here to tell you whether to disband or rebuild. That's up to you. But if you choose to rebuild, you'll need a new charter, one with real checks and balances." That set the stage for something none of us expected, a vote to dissolve the HOA entirely. State law allowed it, but it required a supermajority 75% of homeowners. By the end of the week, over 80% had signed. The HOA was officially terminated. Jamal stayed on for 3 more weeks to help transition. He connected residents to city services, helped establish a neighborhood watch, and worked with local contractors to set up voluntary maintenance agreements for shared spaces. Without the HOA, we still had grass to cut and trash to manage, but now it was done through consensus, not coercion. Gloria was asked to be part of the new advisory committee. She agreed on one condition, that no one would have unilateral authority. Every decision would be debated, recorded, and posted publicly. I was asked to join too. I declined. I'd done my part, and frankly, I was ready to go back to grilling on weekends and ignoring my email. The last time I saw Detective Harris, he was standing outside Nadine's now vacant house. A for sale sign had gone up that morning. The grass was overgrown, windows shuttered. He walked over and handed me a manila envelope. "The DA's office is moving forward with a full trial," he said. "You'll probably get a subpoena." What's in the envelope? Restitution forms. Victims of HOA fraud are entitled to claim for damages. You've got receipts. That driveway stunt alone qualifies. I nodded and tucked the envelope under my arm. As he walked back to his car, he paused. "You know, most people back down when HOA presidents pull this kind of thing." "Yeah," I said. "But most people don't get woken up at 4 in the morning over brunch parking," he laughed. "Fair point." That evening, I sat on my porch with a book and a glass of something strong. The air was quiet, peaceful. A few kids rode bikes past the house, and June waved from across the street while walking her dog. No citations, no pink slips, no clipboard-wielding tyrants, just neighbors. The cameras were still mounted, but I hadn't touched the footage in days. The cones were gone. The sign was down. My van was parked where it belonged, right in my own driveway, and no one was calling the cops about it. Not anymore.